Welcome to Rare Breed Brotherhood. Just because I don't say much doesn't mean I'm not seeing everything. Sigma males walk a different road, and most people don't even notice it. On the surface, they might seem calm, reserved, maybe even detached. But what's happening behind that quiet face is something most people will never understand. They're not just thinking. They're studying, calculating, planning, living an entire second life that only they know exists. This isn't about being fake, it's not a performance, it's a survival strategy. The Sigma male understands that the world is loud, messy, and full of people desperate to be seen. He doesn't need that. He doesn't chase attention, applause, or approval. He moves through the noise with a kind of silent power, keeping his truest self guarded. Not because he's hiding, but because he's protecting what matters most. And if this feels like you, if you often feel like you're two people at once, one for the world and one that only shows up when you're alone, understand this. You're not confused, broken, or cold. You're intentional. You think before you speak. You calculate before you commit. You observe before you react. That's not weakness, that's awareness. This double life isn't a burden, it's your edge. The world may only see one side of you, but deep down you know the fire that burns in silence. And that quiet, focused version of you, that's the one that's going to leave a mark no one saw coming. Let's get into it, brothers. Number 1. Public politeness, private disdain. In public, the Sigma male can be one of the most polite people in the room. He'll nod along, smile when it's expected, and carry a calm, respectful tone, even in conversations that are shallow, fake, or painfully scripted. He knows how to play the part. He knows when to speak and when to stay silent. To most people, he just seems chill, maybe even easygoing. But here's the part no one sees. The entire time he's being polite, he's also quietly taking notes, and not the flattering kind. Sigma males are not impressed by surface-level charm or empty talk. In fact, they can spot it from a mile away. But instead of calling it out or creating a scene, they store it away. Behind closed doors, when no one's watching, that same Sigma is mentally tearing apart every fake compliment, every ego-driven comment, and every manipulative gesture he witnessed. He sees through it all. He just chooses not to react in the moment. Why? Because he knows something most people don't. Reacting gives away power. He doesn't argue with fools. He doesn't expose himself to people who aren't worth the energy. His silence is not agreement. It's a filter, a shield, a test. This is why so many people underestimate Sigma males. They think the Sigma is buying into the conversation, into the image. They think he's being agreeable. But in reality, the Sigma is quietly distancing himself. The more fake you are, the faster he mentally cuts you off. No drama, no confrontation, just quiet, permanent disconnection. And this is where the real strength lies. A Sigma doesn't need to prove he sees through the nonsense. He just watches, remembers, and moves accordingly. It's not coldness. It's clarity. If you've ever smiled through a conversation, knowing full well the energy was fake, congratulations. You're not naive. You're just playing chess in a world full of checkers. Number 2. They speak in riddles, but think in precision. When a Sigma male speaks, it often sounds like he's being vague, philosophical, or even cryptic. He might say something that makes people pause and wonder, what does he really mean by that? And that's exactly the point. His words are a shield, intentionally open-ended, carefully chosen to keep you at a distance. But make no mistake, behind those abstract phrases is a mind that's anything but unclear. In private, Sigma males think with surgical precision. Their thoughts are sharp, organized, and brutally honest. They question themselves constantly, not in a way that leads to self-doubt, but in a way that forces clarity. They don't allow sloppy thinking. Every move, every idea, every decision gets analyzed, refined, and tested in the privacy of their own minds. It's a level of self-awareness that most people never reach, and they do it in silence. So why the riddles in public? Because full honesty invites intrusion. If a Sigma told you exactly what he was thinking, most people wouldn't understand it, or worse, they'd try to twist it, challenge it, or use it against him. So he keeps his truth wrapped in layers, not lies, layers. A Sigma doesn't hide because he's unsure, he hides because he's sure of how much noise is out there. The irony is, people often assume he's just deep for the sake of being deep. But the truth is, he's protecting his clarity with a fog of words. He knows that the more he reveals, the more vulnerable his thinking becomes to shallow minds and surface-level reactions. So instead, he leaves breadcrumbs. He speaks in a way that only those who really pay attention will pick up on. If you've ever caught yourself holding back your full thoughts, choosing your words carefully, or speaking in a way that guards your inner world, you're not avoiding connection. You're preserving depth. And in a world full of noise, that's not just wise. That's power. Number 3. Publicly passive, privately predatory in ambition. On the outside, Sigma males seem calm, detached, unbothered. They don't broadcast their goals, brag about their plans, or scramble for attention. In fact, most people assume they're not even playing the game. But what those people don't see is what happens behind the scenes. Because privately, the Sigma male is anything but passive. Behind that quiet surface is someone with ambition so focused, so calculated, it's almost dangerous. They're not running after shiny distractions or chasing approval. They're studying the landscape, watching who's wasting energy, calculating when and where to strike. While others burn out trying to prove how hard they hustle, the Sigma male is building his empire in silence. He moves slowly, but on purpose. He doesn't rush because he's not desperate. He knows exactly what he wants, and he's willing to wait, adjust, and strike with precision. This is what sets him apart. He's not just driven, he's strategic. While others compete for short-term wins, the Sigma is playing the long game. He doesn't need to be seen winning to be winning. And that's what throws people off. His calmness gets mistaken for complacency. But that calm is the result of confidence, not the loud, flashy kind. The kind built through relentless private effort, discipline, and vision. When he moves, it's not random, it's not impulsive, it's calculated. Every choice he makes is part of a bigger map that no one else sees. He's not hunting like the others. He's stalking, watching, waiting. Not because he's unsure, but because he knows timing is everything. So, if you're the type who doesn't talk about your dreams but works on them quietly, if you've ever been underestimated because you didn't advertise your ambition, you're not lacking drive. You're just moving like a real threat does, silently. And when it's time to strike, no one sees it coming. Number 4, they are a ghost in public, but a fire in private. In public, Sigma males move like shadows, quiet, minimal, unnoticed. They don't dominate rooms or chase attention. They observe, they nod, they disappear into the background like they were never there. To the outside world, they're just another face in the crowd, maybe even forgettable. But that's only because people are looking in the wrong places. What they don't see is what's happening when the Sigma male is alone. Behind closed doors, he's a fire. His mind never stops. While others are scrolling, gossiping, or trying to look important, he's creating, writing, building, thinking, tearing down the false and rebuilding something real. He's shaping a future that hasn't even been imagined by most. And he's doing it in silence, without needing a stage or applause. What people call isolation, he calls ignition. He doesn't need permission to dream. He doesn't need validation to build. In fact, the less people know about what he's doing, the better. Privacy gives him power. Solitude gives him fuel. The same quiet that makes him invisible in public turns into a furnace in private. That's where the real version of him lives. Not the polite face, not the withdrawn figure in the corner, but the force that's refining his vision, sharpening his skills, and writing his name into places no one saw coming. And here's the thing, that fire isn't chaotic, it's focused, intentional, ruthless. He's not burning just to burn. He's burning with direction, with purpose. Every hour he spends in that private world is an hour invested into a version of himself that's coming sooner or later. So if people overlook you in public, let them. If they assume you're empty just because you're quiet, smile and keep moving. Because when you finally show the world what you've been building in silence, they won't understand how they missed it. You were never gone. You were just out of their reach, burning your way towards something they'll never see coming. Number 5. They underplay their strengths on purpose. A Sigma male could be the smartest, most skilled person in the room, and you wouldn't even know it. Not because he's hiding, but because he chooses not to show his hand. He'll let others speak first, take the spotlight, and enjoy the attention. He's not in a rush to prove anything. Why? because validation means nothing to him. Mastery does. In public, Sigma males often come across as calm, even passive. They ask more questions than they answer. They listen more than they speak. But this isn't weakness, it's strategy. While everyone else is putting their best cards on the table, he's still studying the game. He doesn't reveal his full capacity because he knows the value of restraint. What looks like humility is actually control. Behind the scenes, though, it's a different story. That's where the Sigma is grinding, learning, sharpening. While others chase applause or try to dominate every conversation, the Sigma is silently evolving. No noise, no announcement, just real progress. He doesn't show off because he doesn't need to. He'd rather let people underestimate him until it's too late to catch up. And this is where things get really interesting. Most people burn out. They waste energy trying to be impressive all the time, but the Sigma saves his energy. He outlasts. He waits until the noise dies down. When the crowd is tired, the show-offs are distracted, and everyone thinks the game is over. Then he makes his move. That's when the same people who overlooked him are left wondering, where did he come from? But the truth is, he was always there, just moving in silence. So if you've ever held back your talents, not out of fear but out of focus, if you'd rather master your craft in private than prove it to the world, you're not playing small. You're playing smart. And when it's time, your quiet strength will speak louder than any performance ever could. Number 6. Their public calm is a weapon, not a trait. Most people think Sigma males are just naturally calm, like they're born with some magical sense of inner peace. But let's be honest, that calm isn't always peace. It's a calculated move. It's not a personality trait, it's a weapon. Sigma males don't stay composed because they're numb or passive. They stay composed because they know what chaos invites: exposure, attention, and distraction, and they don't want any of that. See, in a world that's constantly overreacting, oversharing, and overcompensating, the Sigma male's stillness is unsettling. People don't know how to read it. They assume he's not a threat because he's not loud. They confuse his silence with submission. But that's exactly what he wants. Because the moment people underestimate him, he gains the upper hand. That calm exterior, it buys him space. Space to think, to assess, to plan his next step while everyone else is too busy making noise. It keeps others guessing. You won't know if he's impressed, annoyed, or 2 steps away from outmaneuvering you. He's not reacting. He's watching, carefully, quietly, strategically. And here's what people often miss. Sigma males do feel things deeply. They're not robots. They just don't wear their emotions on their sleeves because they've learned that emotional exposure is a luxury they can't afford, not in public. So instead, they keep it cool. And that control isn't about pride. It's about power. This is how they win without showing their hand. While others are distracted by noise, competition, and ego, the Sigma male is sitting still, collecting data, sharpening intent. He may not always be the loudest person in the room, but he's usually the one who understands it best. So if you've ever stayed quiet on purpose, let someone underestimate you, or kept your cool while chaos unfolded around you, know this: you weren't being passive. You were being dangerous. Calm isn't always kindness. Sometimes it's camouflage. Number 7, publicly apathetic, privately passionate. Sigma males have a way of looking like they don't care. About trends, about gossip, about the rush everyone else seems to be caught up in. From the outside, they can seem detached, apathetic, even cold. People mistake that silence for indifference. But here's the truth. That lack of interest? It's not because they feel nothing. It's because they've chosen where to focus everything they've got. In public, they'll shrug, nod, stay quiet when others are ranting or raving about the latest thing. You won't catch them fake laughing or pretending to be excited just to fit in. They won't bother correcting your assumptions about them either. That's because they're not trying to impress you. They've already turned their attention inward, into a world of personal vision, values, and purpose that most people will never get to see. But in private, that's where the obsession lives. The Sigma male is quietly burning with intensity about ideas, missions, creations, questions that matter to him. He'll spend hours learning something that no one told him to learn. He'll obsess over a goal no one understands. He'll fight through his own doubts, wrestle with his own flaws, and build something silently, because the fire inside him isn't performative, it's personal. He's not uninterested in everything. He's uninterested in your noise, the distractions, the shallow praise, the fake urgency. That's what he turns away from. But the moment he's alone, the mask drops. That's when he's alive, engaged, focused, and pouring energy into what actually matters. So if people ever accuse you of not caring, let them. If they think you're emotionless just because you don't react to the noise, don't explain yourself, because what they call apathy is actually protection. You're saving your fire for something real. And that's not coldness, it's discipline. The truth is, you care deeply, just not about what they think you should. And that's exactly why you're dangerous. Number 8. They can smile without meaning it. Sigma males have cracked the code of social survival. They've studied the rules, not because they believe in them, but because they know how to move through them without being dragged down. And that's why they've mastered one of the most misunderstood skills out there. The ability to smile without meaning it. See, when a Sigma male smiles at you, it's not always friendliness. It's not approval. Sometimes it's just strategy. It's a way to keep the peace, avoid drama, or let you believe whatever you want to believe. That smile? It's not warmth, it's a mirror. One that silently bounces your expectations right back at you. People assume that because he's polite, he agrees. That because he nods, he respects them. That because he seems calm, he must be impressed. But here's what they miss. None of it is real unless he says it is. That smile might just be a quiet way of saying, I see through you, but I'm not going to waste my energy exposing you. Sigma males are not out here trying to be liked. They're not chasing approval or fitting into every circle. But they do know how to blend in when necessary. They've learned to wear just enough of a social mask to avoid unnecessary confrontation, but never so much that they forget who they are underneath. That's what makes them unsettling to some people. You think you've connected. You think you've won them over. But in reality, they're already gone. In thought, in interest, in respect. You're just watching the shell they use to navigate the noise. So if you're a Sigma and you've ever smiled through a fake conversation, nodded through someone's ego trip, or played along while mentally walking away, you're not fake. You're precise. You've learned that not every battle needs to be fought. Sometimes, silence and a well-timed smile are the sharpest tools in the box. Number 9, publicly they play along. Privately, they play above. In public, Sigma males are masters of blending in. They'll sit through meetings, nod at the right times, and follow the rules just enough to keep the spotlight off them. They're not trying to stand out, not trying to stir the pot. They let the loud ones lead, the show-offs shine, and the power-hungry fight for attention. On the surface, it looks like they're just another face in the crowd, obedient, quiet, even unremarkable. But that's the camouflage. What people don't realize is that while the Sigma male plays along with the system, he's not playing in it. He's playing above it. He's building something of his own, something that has nothing to do with titles, approval, or office politics. He doesn't need applause, validation, or permission. He's not chasing promotions. He's laying the foundation for freedom. While others are focused on climbing ladders, he's quietly building a staircase that leads somewhere completely different. Maybe it's a business, a project, a philosophy, a skill no one knows he's mastering. Whatever it is, it's real, it's his. And he doesn't talk about it because he doesn't need to. Talking doesn't get it done. Applause doesn't make it grow. And here's the twist. Most people never see it coming because they're too busy watching the obvious. They confuse silence with submission and routine with surrender. But when the Sigma finally reveals what he's been working on, or when the results start speaking for themselves, it doesn't just surprise people, it shifts the room. Suddenly, the quiet guy they overlooked isn't so forgettable. He's the one who didn't waste time performing. So if you've ever played the game just enough to avoid distractions, if you've ever held your true work close to your chest, not because it's small, but because it's sacred, you're not hiding. You're building above the noise. And when it's time, the world won't be ready, but you will be. Number 10. They let others talk to learn what they think. If you've ever spoken to a Sigma male and walked away feeling like you did most of the talking, You probably did. And that was no accident. Sigma males aren't quiet because they're shy. They're quiet because silence is one of their sharpest tools. While everyone else rushes to prove themselves, to be heard, to be validated, the Sigma male sits back, watches, and listens. Not for entertainment, but for intel. Every word you say, every pause you make, every contradiction you don't notice, he's taking notes, not literally but mentally. Because for a Sigma male, conversation isn't always about connection. Sometimes it's about exposure, yours, not his. When someone talks too much, they reveal more than they think, what they want, what they fear, what they fake. Sigma males know this. That's why they encourage it with quiet nods, subtle reactions, and just the right question to keep the floodgates open. And all the while, they're mapping your values, spotting your blind spots, identifying your insecurities, and figuring out how real or fake you actually are. It's not manipulation, it's awareness. They're not trying to use you. They're trying to understand the field they're playing on, and the best way to learn how someone thinks is to let them talk without interruption. People reveal their egos when they feel unseen. And a Sigma male's silence? That's the bait. But don't mistake their quiet for indifference. They're not zoning out. They're locked in, more focused than anyone else in the room. They don't interrupt because they don't need to. They already know they'll walk away with more than they gave. So, if you're a Sigma male who lets others speak first, who listens more than you talk, who walks out of conversations with more data than the other person even realized they shared, you're not passive, you're strategic. Your silence isn't empty, it's loaded. Number 11. Their public self is a projection, not a persona. Most people wear a persona in public, a character built to be liked, accepted, or admired. Sigma males don't bother with that. They don't shape-shift to win the crowd or dilute themselves to fit in. What they do instead is far more calculated. They project what's needed, nothing more, nothing less. This isn't about faking who they are. It's about surviving the noise without letting it infect who they truly are. The Sigma male understands the rules of the world, but he doesn't surrender to them. He plays the part just enough to stay out of unnecessary battles. He knows when to speak, when to stay silent, when to give a nod, and when to disappear. It's not about deception. It's about preservation. That public version of him, it's not a mask. It's a filter, a controlled broadcast, something carefully curated so the world doesn't get too close, too curious, or too comfortable. Because deep down, the Sigma male doesn't want to be known by everyone. He wants to be understood by himself. That's the real work happening behind closed doors. The mistake people make is thinking he's guarded because he's insecure or antisocial. But the truth is, he's just intentional. He's not going to show his real depth to a room full of strangers who only deal in surface-level noise. He's not going to unleash his fire in a system built to extinguish authenticity. So instead, he projects calm, agreeable, minimal, just enough to move through the system without getting swallowed by it. And that's where the power is. He hasn't given up who he is, he's protected it. While others are out here performing, hoping to be noticed, Sigma males are quietly preserving their energy for what actually matters. So if your public self feels like a quiet version of you, not a fake one, if you feel like you're showing only what's necessary and saving the rest for real moments, then you're not hiding. You're projecting with purpose. And that's not weakness. That's control. In conclusion, being a Sigma male isn't about acting mysterious or playing hard to get. It's about survival in a world that rarely rewards quiet strength. If you've ever felt like you live two lives, one for the world and one for yourself, you're not broken, fake, or antisocial. You're aware. Your public side doesn't make you a liar. It makes you strategic. You know not every room deserves the real you. Not every crowd can handle your fire. So you observe. You play it cool. You give people just enough while keeping your deeper world guarded and sacred. And that private world? That's where your truth lives, your ambition, your pain, your ideas, your evolution. The version of you no one claps for, but that you keep building anyway. That's the version that matters most. Yes, it's exhausting sometimes, carrying that double life. Knowing more than you say, feeling more than you show. Watching a world that rewards noise while you thrive in silence. But trust this, you're not alone, and you're not wrong for being the way you are. You were never built for the spotlight. You were built for substance. You were never meant to be loud. You were meant to be lethal in stillness. You don't need constant validation because you already know your worth, even when the world doesn't. So keep walking your path. Keep mastering your silence. Keep protecting what's sacred. There's power in the contrast between who you show and who you are. It's not a weakness. It's a design. And it's not for everyone to understand, just for you to live fully and unapologetically. Remember, the world may never see your full fire, but that doesn't mean it isn't burning. Thank you for watching. God bless you.